Hey guys, so right now the MonsterVerse has been decreasing in both box office and overall quality, and with the franchise kicking into a supposed climax with the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong, the franchise is on a rocky slope, with the first 3 films all being polarizing to both critics and audiences. So today I thought I'd go through all 3 MonsterVerse films so far and then give a semi-pitch as to what they should do in Godzilla vs. Kong, but they won't do it. And of course, before we start guys, please make sure to like and subscribe to The Young Cynics. Your support will be so great to help this small channel grow. So 2014's much anticipated Godzilla reboot directed by Gareth Edwards was definitely good, but can be segmented into 3 parts. The first third is intriguing and emotional, as it follows Bryan Cranston, but as soon as he dies in the film, it becomes boring and sluggish, and really doesn't pick up until the final third. Now, I'll be the first one to defend this film. I love how they keep Godzilla mostly unseen until the 3rd act. It's like Jaws or every other Godzilla movie, where we spend most of the film with the human characters before getting a massive battle finale. But unfortunately, the human characters outside of Bryan Cranston are boring. Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen feel real, but they don't have any charisma to them. Ken Watanabe is just there to spurt lines and give looks for the trailer. The design of the Mutos is fine, but they don't have any personality to their characters. They can't emote like Godzilla can, but the final battle is incredible. The final third action scenes is often credited as Gareth Edwards' strongest attribute. It's inventive, it has fun with the setting, it mixes well with the human plot, and has an incredible climax that makes everyone
cream your jeans.
It works perfectly as a standalone film in segments, but when it's based solely on Aaron Taylor-Johnson, the film has the same boring feel as Rogue One did during their exposition scenes. Kong Skull Island is fine. I'd say it's about on par with 2014's Godzilla in terms of what it needed to get right, but also in terms of what it got wrong. The monster action is great and creative. Kong is the best character in it. However, while the characters were once again forgettable, they did have a bit more personality. But that was due to the actors. Samuel L. Jackson was literally a Samuel L. Jackson character, and John C. Reilly was literally a John C. Reilly character. It wasn't the writing, but the actors who were bringing their all to these extremely underwritten characters. Tom Hiddleston was just an extremely generic action guy. It was exactly the same as Chris Pratt's character in Jurassic World. Brie Larson was there to take photographs and be there as a reference to the old King Kong movies, and Toby Kebbell had a family? Anyway, while I like the characters a bit more, none of them were near the caliber of Bryan Cranston in the first Godzilla. You could connect to him there. A guy who lost his wife and it's caused him to lose control, not to mention how much his performance elevated the film.
You keep telling everybody that this place is a death zone, but it's not. You're lying. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there.
But Kong was fun for what it was. It's just, even when the director is picking out all the errors in the film, you can easily summarize this as fun, but flawed. Godzilla King of the Monsters was really what dampened my enthusiasm for this new endeavor of legendaries. This was one of my most anticipated films of 2019. Sitting in the IMAX, I was ready and, well, at one point of the film it was going pretty strong. It was at that incredible action scene of the birth of Rodan and the following chase with their large plane, while Ghidorah and Godzilla were coming the other way. And after that, everything went to shit. The only thing I liked in the rest of the film was the scene where Serizawa goes to revive Godzilla and that final shot. The film gets bogged down in the Trojan horse tactic I talked about in my Sins of Sequels video, and then decides to set up the rest of the MonsterVerse when they already had multiple films of material right in front of them with Godzilla and his 3 greatest rivals. This line pisses me off so much.
Jesus. How many of these things are there?
17. And counting after Godzilla.
The characters are all bland. Vera Farmiga's plan is so comically bad of letting the Titans destroy the world because humans done mucked it up. And then Millie Bobby Brown has a perpetual half-cry face, and Carl Chandler's character was completely forgettable. However, the film absolutely nailed one aspect, and that is what all 3 of these films have done increasingly well, giving the monsters character. In all three of these movies, the monsters have the best characters. The way the three Ghidorah heads all have personalities. The way Godzilla gives his looks to the camera. Kong has always been an interesting metaphorical character, and these movies have all understood these concepts perfectly. Unfortunately, they insist on constantly having 15 characters, all played by decent actors who just feel like puppets for exposition. So today I'm going to go through how I would fix the MonsterVerse, and also give an outline for Godzilla vs. Kong. And before I start with that, a lot of the stuff I'm going to pitch is going to be contradictory to what these set photos have alluded to. But first, let's just go to 3 points that I feel could greatly improve this cinematic universe. Give the human characters personality. In King of the Monsters, there are just way too many characters who are just there to either spurt one-liners or give exposition. And it just leaves you wondering how many of these guys could be cut out of the movie with little to no consequence. And the answer is almost all of them. We only really need 2 or 3 main characters, and you can give each of them multiple character traits. One can be young, brash, and out of their element. One can be a wiser old guide who knows the history of these monsters, and another skilled fighter who's technically competent. There! You don't need 17 people in a control room spurting exposition. Like in King of the Monsters, you had 2 guys for technical quips, one army guy, the wise Japanese guy, a wise Japanese girl, an animal scientist, an eco-scientist, their daughter, the wise Japanese guy's assistant, and they are all completely forgettable. Just give us 2 to 3 characters to care about in this whole thing. 2014 Godzilla had a boring main character, but at least we spent the whole film with him. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but 1998 Godzilla had a god-awful main character, but at least he was definitively the main character. King of the Monsters had the Phantom Menace problem of too many characters, making it a muddled mess of who we were meant to be following. This can work in a film like Pulp Fiction, where it's smart, sophisticated, well written, and masterfully directed, but not in a massive blockbuster. Just take Marty and Doc from Back to the Future and put them in a Godzilla movie. That's what we need, a relatable protagonist thrown into a larger story, and a scientist who knows stuff about monsters. Build up the monster fights. 2014 Godzilla did this brilliantly. They built anticipation, they gave you the bluest balls in cinema history, and then relieved it with that incredible final battle. However, in King of the Monsters, they give you a decent amount of large-scale fights straight up, and they are all at an incredible scale, so once the final battle rolled around, it wasn't as satisfying as we'd already seen the monsters go at it multiple times. Also, usually these fights increase in size each movie. 2014 had San Francisco, and then 2019 had Boston? This is nothing against Boston, but seriously, why the fuck wasn't this in some cool place like Tokyo, or Sydney, or Paris? I want to see someone get impaled on the Eiffel Tower, or let Godzilla use the Tokyo Tower as a spear, or body slam Kong through the Harbour Bridge. But Boston? What's he gonna do? Whack him over to Harvard Yard and get some baked beans at Fenway Park? I'm sorry, that was my Boston accent. Start slow though. We shouldn't see the 2 main monsters fight until the 3rd act. Or if you are gonna have them earlier, make it a teaser, 2 or 3 moves at most before something distracts them. Lose the fat.
Jesus. How many of these things are there?
17. And counting after Godzilla.
As previously said, this line pissed me off because of how incredibly transparent the writers were being. I was fine with the film being a showdown between 4 icons, however the fact that they set up a universe worth of spin-offs in this process, as well as heavily alluding to the fact that these monsters, even the dead ones, will all definitively be coming back again. It was ridiculous. Now we will get movies with Mothra again, Mecha Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla, which I actually really want to see, Manny from Ice Age, a big spider, another Muto, the Bunyip, and a sea monster. Point is, we don't need any of these new things. If all we're going to get is more movies about animals fighting in cities while bland human characters follow them, then count me out. However, if you want to take some of these and put them in a smaller scale like the Bunyip in Australia, that's fine. But for this time, you can't make a new Godzilla vs. movie every year. Back in the 60s you could because they were massively popular in Japan, and I mean, look at the quality of them.
Something funny going on. You better check. Oh, yeah. Hurry up.
So let's plan out a story for Godzilla vs. Kong. So the cast is pretty strong at the moment. You have Millie Bobby Brown and Chandler returning, as well as Lance Reddick, Tyree Henry, and Julian Dennison, but immediately this is where the mistake is. Sorry, but I don't want to follow children around in my Godzilla movie. It makes no sense. I would like a competent main character. Yeah, but one who isn't boring. So what I would do is have the film about 10 to 20 years in the future and have Millie Bobby Brown's character Maddie be a pilot, so that way you can have her be a strong, competent character who actually has a reason for being amongst the conflict. Also, her being a pilot will lend itself to plenty of intense action scenes, where she is integral to the plot. I'd have some sort of scientist, I'm not sure if he'd be Japanese. Like, we already did that, but he needs more charisma than to just dramatically say Godzilla's name and stare off into the distance.
We call him Godzilla.
I'd start the film off with a fly over Skull Island by the military, which they had been told to do by Monarch who aren't there. Maddie is one of the pilots and they go over the island, and of course with its strange thundery clouds. However, they are attacked over the island by a large flying creature, taking each of the pilots out one by one. However, as it approaches Maddie, it is taken out of the sky by a gigantic ape. Kong is now fully grown, and we see it pummel the bird into oblivion before Maddie escapes back to the ship crashing down. We get some development where she learns from a former Monarch scientist how the island should never have been explored, and then we cut to a Titan approaching land and a city panicking. All of a sudden, Godzilla rising out of the water right in front of him, roaring as we cut away. From here it'd be pretty simple. We'd get Maddie and the scientists doing some investigative work and going back to Skull Island where they would find the cave painting of Kong and Godzilla. We'd get some action of Kong fighting monsters before they managed to escape, and throughout the movie we would cut back to Godzilla every now and then, beating up monsters, however slowly being worn down to even out the final fight. Meanwhile, Monarch would be doing testing on Skull Island, which was alluded to at the end credits of King of the Monsters, which would go horribly wrong. This would allow Kong to wreak havoc and escape, killing more monsters in his wake, eventually coming after the King of the Monsters. We would get a massive third act fight, in no place other than New York City, because you have to have Kong there, and we could just mess up the entire city and have a little reference to the Empire State Building. Or while this happens, we could have Maddie in her plane as, I guess the government would be trying to nuke New York City, and she would have to carry out a mission to stop it. As to who would actually win that fight, I'm not sure. I'd guess Godzilla because he's got thermonuclear powers, and the posters have alluded to one will fall, but we all know that none of these guys are actually going to die. Did Superman die? No. Did Freddy die? No. Did Alien and Predator die? No one gives a fuck. This movie doesn't need to be some 2.5 hour epic. Seriously, keep it to 1 hour and 45 minutes and you can have a great tightly crafted story with likable main characters and a great final battle. Simple. So that was my rant / pit / fixer upper. What did you guys think and how would you like to see this franchise evolve? As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to The Young Cynics, and until next time,